Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas G. Ladies and gentlemen, the escalation in the Middle East has now entered day 4 and tensions are rising sharply. The United States under President Donald Trump is doubling down on its military posture. In a strong message, Trump has claimed that the US has enough stockpiled weapons to fight wars forever. In fact, he went a step further, calling America's arsenal a virtually unlimited supply of ammunition, asserting that prolonged wars can be sustained and even won using existing resources. So the big concern is the world staring at a long war. Quick update coming in now from Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has visited the Air Force base at Palmachim today with the Defense Minister and the Chief of General Staff. Netanyahu has praised them for their activities during Operation Road of the Lion. He also says, and I quote, "We continue striking Iran with full force. Our pilots are over Tehran and Lebanon. Hezbollah made a very big mistake attacking us. Military campaign and regional operations remain ongoing." Let's go across to Rishabh for more on this. Rishabh, Benjamin Netanyahu doubling down, not in any way being cowed down by the kind of reports coming in of attacks, missiles, and of course drones being used. Very heavy attacks coming in from Iran on Tel Aviv.
Well, Madhav, definitely. The way, there are attacks that are taking place on Tel Aviv and the barrage of missiles that are now falling at Tel Aviv, killing at least one is what we're given to understand. Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided to visit an air base. It is nothing but a confidence-building measure among the armed forces. IDF has been continuously fighting multiple fronts. We have seen from October 2023 that how they have been fighting against Hamas, then Lebanon, the Hezbollah, and now the Iran forces as well. So this is a confidence building measure with the IDF. Also, it will boost their confidence, and Netanyahu knows that they are in for a long haul, and hence these kind of exercises will help the political and the military side to have better synergy, and that's the reason that we see.
Stay with us, Rishabh. There's some more breaking news coming in. The building of Iran's Assembly of Experts in Qom, south of Tehran, has been attacked, and this was a meeting of this assembly to elect the next supreme leader of the next Ayatollah. And this is a very, very crucial signal coming in from Israel that they are not going to give in as well. Mayank is joining us. Mayank, you know, many experts were saying that after a meeting of the Ayatollah Khamenei was targeted, which also took out several top generals, now that there was a council meeting, they weren't expecting it to happen very soon. But that meeting did happen, and Israel once again targeting that meeting.
Two very important messages which we can easily surmise from this action. And the first and foremost one is that there are precise intelligence about the movement of the top leadership wherever they are and whenever they congregate. Second point, US has clearly sent a message, or the joint efforts of the US and Israel are clear that they will be obliterating all kind of leadership, which can be civil leadership, which can be military leadership. So gradually we will see that all precise intelligence, which may be from every form, which can be signal intelligence, which can be human intelligence, which can be from satellite and all, the US and Israel have a clear edge and clarity on every movement of the leaders of Iran. And this was a precise hit.
Okay. That's, in fact, very, very significant that how Israel, US have been able to penetrate the intelligence networks there, have been able to penetrate and get very specific and deep real-time information about the movements of these leaders, and that's clearly giving them the edge in this entire campaign. Rishabh and Mayank, thanks so much for joining us. Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guests who are joining us here in the studio. I'm going to come across first to you, Colonel Shailendra. This is very, very significant because you have a situation where, you know, attack after attack is taking place. Not only is the Ayatollah being attacked in this manner and killed, but the meeting to elect the next supreme leader has also been attacked. It doesn't get bigger than this.
Jai Hind, Namaskar. We must understand one thing very clearly. The strength of Israel is in intelligence, precision strike, and verifications. Pre-verification before the strike, post-verification after the strike, which amounts to a very deep penetration into the system of Iran. And that is why even when that Khomeini's thing, that was the only time ever that he came out of the bunker to attend a meeting and they struck. Now, when they are striking the assembly of experts, why? Because they expect that again a so-called new leadership kind of thing would have been there. And why not remove it? They are going systematically. It is their strength. And they are always been known that how they have been always striking and removing the new hierarchy, the further new hierarchy, and whatever. 48 leaders killed. Is it less? And now they are aiming for another, let's say 10, 20 who would have come for this meeting. Now, whether they get killed but it's a very ceremonial thing for them that we are able to hit that place which they want to. And that's a clear indication to Iran that probably God also cannot save you.
All right, and in fact, to be introduced other panelists joining us this evening, Mark Ivanyo is Executive Director of Republicans for National Renewal. We have Major General Yaakov Amidror, he's a former National Security Advisor of Israel. Michael Owens, Mayor of Mableton, US, is with us. We also have Yasmin Mata, researcher in the University of Oxford and editor of the academic journal Critique. Fred Weir is a Russian expert and journalist joining us. In fact, with this development, let me quickly open this up to our panelists as well. Yasmin Mata, this is very pinpointed and specific information, as our colleagues have been telling us. Not only have they been able to, take out the supreme leader, they've also attacked the council meeting. Now, this is very, very significant. And this means that's very specific information surrounding the leadership of Iran is there with Israel and the United States. And that's why they're able to, do these pinpointed strikes.
There are two interpretations to this. One is that they have information that they have hacked into the camera system, the extended CCTV systems that exist in Iran, or that they have spies. Both are possible. However, and there is also satellite information. However, we know that both countries, Iran has spies in Israel. The Israelis often arrest people on those charges, and clearly Israel has spies in Iran. It's not very surprising. The original report said that the council was meeting there. Iranians are saying that wasn't the case. I don't know, but my guess is that they have been more careful in the last few days in terms of movements of people who might decide the next supreme leader. Having said that, I think the interim council, which is formed according to the constitution, is the effective ruling power right now in Iran, and they will probably delay the meeting of the Council of Experts to decide the supreme leader who is supposed to represent.
We also have with us Major General Yaakov Amidror, the former National Security Advisor of Israel. Major General Yaakov, let me ask you this, that while it is a fact that this is perhaps a huge win for Israel in terms of pinpointing and trying to dismantle the regime that exists in Iran, the fact is also that Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel have been hit by rapid bursts of missiles and drones. And there's one such attack that we've seen even late this evening.
I don't know about drones. Drones are coming from Lebanon, not from Iran. The Iranians didn't succeed to infiltrate even with one drone into Israel. The success of Hezbollah with drone is also very, very limited. Yes, around 250 missiles had been launched by the Iranians into Israel. And as we said, the defense systems are not 100%, it's around 90%, 85%. And if you take 10% out of 250, it's 25 missiles. Less than this number was succeeded to hit Israel targets. All the targets which had been achieved by the Iranians are civilian. And yes, they can penetrate, 10% of their missiles can penetrate the Israeli defense system, and the results is clear. If we have a bad luck, like in Bet Shemesh, 9 Israelis have been killed. If we have a good luck, like today near Tel Aviv, no one was killed. So it very much depends on where the people are. did they succeed to get to the shelters and so on and so forth. But we're very satisfied from the defensive systems that we have. To achieve 90% of interception, I think it's very, very high and good enough. And yeah, we plan to continue in spite the fact that from time to time a missile is succeeding to infiltrate to our system and to hit Tel Aviv or another city, because it here in the table is something crucial to Israel. It is about the ability to destroy the military nuclear project of the Iranians and the ability of the Iranians to produce thousands of missiles like the one, like those which are hitting Tel Aviv.
That's actually a very important factor, because there are tens of thousands of such drones that Iran has. And let me bring in Michael Owens on this. Michael Owens, Iran's strategy is very clearly to put in cheap drones. And you have a $10,000 or a $20,000 drone, and to take that out, if you're going to use a Patriot missile that costs somewhere in the range of about $4 to $5 million, the hugely lopsided cost of this itself is going to be a disincentive to carrying out a long war, is perhaps Iran's calculation. Michael Owens.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate being on. It is lopsided a bit, but you have to think about this in the broader context. When looking at even U.S. Cyber Command, it talked about having knowledge as to what the Iranian communication systems were going to be and be able to set the stage for how to disrupt the systems and be able to engage. It doesn't always come at a cost parity, but it's really about how are these attacks going to get certain systems. And in this case, whether it's drones or whether it's cyber activity that we cannot directly see, there's a broad cyber operations that's being done by the U.S. and Israel on Iranian infrastructure. We already know that, and it works in conjunction with some of the missiles and drone activity that we're seeing. There's also been software and media compromises. Again, this is part of the, I think, coordinated attack that we will see. So, I want to make clear there are things that we are seeing happen in this kinetic space, but there's also cyber activities that are taking place that is happening to synchronize this, but also to disrupt, like I said before, communication systems, to be able to disrupt some of the coordinations that Iran may want to have in place or need to have in place to disrupt some of these things. And, it's this blind kind of adversarial aspect to situational awareness that we're seeing that I think is leading to some of this precision. Yes, we know that there's human factors, that there's spies there's satellites and those other things, but I think what we're seeing is the precision that's being on display really because of the technology that's being used in this aspect.
Okay, let me bring in Mark Evagno on that. Mark Evagno, now you are in a situation where President Trump says that the stockpile is enough, that they're prepared for a long war, but just look at the kind of impact it's had. Just look at the kind of assets. It's beyond U.S. military bases now. It is actually the oil infrastructure. The Strait of Hormuz appears to be blocked for all practical purposes. U.S. may deny it officially, but it is a fact that those tankers are not moving. And the global oil prices speak for themselves. They were at about 10% higher. It's crossed 17 to about 20-25% now. This is going to be disastrous for the whole world if the war goes on for very long. And it appears that both sides have dug in their heels.
Right. So there's a political angle here, which is, a lot of the base of President Trump and a lot of Americans in general don't support this war. It's highly unpopular. Those who do support it, they would like to see a very quick war, as President Trump has stated, 4 to 5 weeks. If it were to go on for much longer, I think not only would it increase the prices all over the world and cause global catastrophe economically, it could also really damage the Republican Party in a lot of ways. And we have the midterms coming up, so the timing is not great already. If we continue on this war, it's not going to look very good for Republicans, especially with President Trump at the leadership. And so, perhaps India, being a friend of both Iran and the United States, can help facilitate some kind of peace talks. But either way, I don't think that this war is tenable, not just in the actual physical sense, but also politically. We can't continue this war for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. There's no way we could do this. It'd be highly unpopular. And the people who support it are going to lose in the polls every time in America.
But that's exactly the question. Let me bring Fred Weir on that. Fred Weir, there's a unique, sort of situation that India, for instance, finds itself. And on the one hand, you have the United States telling India to stop buying Russian oil. On the other hand, the United States is part of this effort, along with Israel, to strike Iran, which has led to a huge surge in global oil prices, particularly oil coming in from the Middle East, of which India is a huge consumer. So clearly, when Russia now steps up and says we're prepared to fill in that gap, India has no option but to do so.
It's not easy to shock the Russians, but the way in which this war was launched seems to have done so. It's not just the launching of a surprise attack in the midst of negotiations that seem to be showing progress, but the killing of the leader, the legitimate leader of a member of the United Nations, is something that they regard as unprecedented, and it's going to have a lot of consequences, especially since they are engaged in negotiations, American-sponsored negotiations over Ukraine. And ironically, it's the same team, Jared Kushner and Mr. Witkoff, who were looking at, running those negotiations with Iran. So the Russians, while officially they're saying clearly they're not an ally of Iran, they're not going to do anything like overtly other than criticize, the implications down the road are going to be rather large. And in the way that they relate to the United States, whatever trust they had with Trump seems to be unraveling very fast. And so this, for the immediate consequences with the Ukraine war and the negotiations that were underway, I think you're going to see an impact there, but also the willingness to do things in their own interests to sell more oil. And with the prices spiking, it's going to really go far to solving their budgetary problems. But in other ways, the way that Russia is relating with the global South and disengaging from the West, I think that it's going to be accelerated by this war and the way it's been waged.
Right. Now, there's a quick bit of update coming in over there. It is President Trump who has spoken to a U.S. publication and says that Iran is running out of crucial armaments and that he's open to working with some surviving members of the country's ruling regime. This is going to be very interesting to see how all of this pans out. In fact, let me take this back to Yasmin Mathur. Yasmin Mathur, we've seen some flip-flops. There were talks going on, in Geneva before the attack happened. And then we heard from the US that they would not want to talk to anyone. They're going to be focused on the attack. Is it the response of Iran that is evoking this kind of a reaction from President Trump? How do you analyze it?
It's very difficult to tell what is going on. My understanding is that a deal was very close Friday, 27th of February, less than 24 hours before the attack. Both sides accuse each other of bad faith. Here, I think there was, if I understand it correctly, the United States came to the conclusion that Israel will attack Iran Saturday, irrespective of whether they joined or not. And therefore, a decision was made to join those operations.
Okay.
What they say in public is not necessarily what is going on behind the scenes. So both sides are now taking a very hard line. My guess is that inside Iran, the fact that the leader of the country has been killed, the fact that we are seeing very large protests in favor of the government means that the state feels strengthened by the war, while their aim, at least by Trump, was to weaken the Islamic Republic. However, how long this support will last for the government is questionable.
Okay.
And therefore, what they say today is not the same as what they would say in a week.
But ma'am, we've also seen a huge amount of protests against the regime, particularly women who were protesting just a few months ago. And the whole reason that this escalated was also the fact that several of those protesters and their protests were brutally crushed. But let me bring in Major General Yakov to respond to you on that. Major General Yakov, do you agree with the previous speaker who says that there are huge protests, that there's a groundswell of support for the regime following the attacks on the Ayatollah?
Ayatollah's death, they were huge, but much bigger.
Major General Yakov, please. Major General Yakov, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself and speak. I think you've muted yourself.
Yes. As far as we understand, there is I don't know if it's a big majority or many people. There is no any way to count the number of people which are against the regime. But what we saw in the demonstrations, it's huge number of people ready to go to the street to sacrifice their lives. 30,000 of them had been killed by the regime. And in spite of the fact that what's important for us is to achieve the elimination of the nuclear and the ballistic projects, we understand that weaker regime might bring a big change in Iran. Can we guarantee it? No. Can the Americans guarantee it? No. But what we can do is to make whatever we can that the regime afterwards will be weaker, to give the Iranians the chance to get rid of this dictatorship, which, by the way, is very bad, not just because it wants to destroy Israel, but because it is giving the Iranians miserable life without having any responsibility for the domestic issues. But it is not our business. Our business is to ensure that the Iranians don't have nuclear and ballistic project, and that the regime at the end of the day will be very, very weak, will not have the ability to resume both projects.
Okay, let me bring in fact, Mark Evagno on that. Mark Evagno, why are we seeing this series of flip-flops from the US's side? On the one hand, you were engaged in talks with Iran. Then we saw how once the strike happened, no talks, no question of engaging with the regime. Now, President Trump again says that we are ready to talk to whoever it is in the regime. And it's the same thing with the entire mission. We were told that the entire idea of doing this was to change the regime there in Iran. Now we are told, no, it is only to, destroy the nuclear weapons. So what's really going on there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the American people are asking similar questions. It's a little confusing, and we do acknowledge that, the administration is aware of information that maybe the public doesn't know, and perhaps we shouldn't know at this point because it's an ongoing conflict, it's an ongoing war. But, we have heard mixed signals. First, we want regime change, but now the meeting to elect a new leader is being bombed. It's all about the nuclear capabilities, but we were told that last year we took out the nuclear capabilities with extreme precision. Actually, the military of the United States is extremely powerful, if not the most powerful in the world. And so, there's a lot of information and questions that are being asked right now by the American people. I imagine in the next few weeks we'll get some more answers about that. But it is true that it's been confusing, and it's not really a Republican or Democrat issue. I think just the people in general are asking, how long is this war going to take?
Okay.
Why are we there?
Okay.
And what's our escape?
All right, the loud explosions have been heard in Dubai. We've seen this pattern for the last 3 evenings where it is post-sunset that Iran starts sending across the missiles and drones across the Strait of Hormuz, and perhaps the country that's been impacted the most in terms of the sheer amount of firepower that's been thrown at them. It is, of course, UAE, and once again, near Dubai. Remember that at the Jebel Ali port is where the US has its naval assets, and those certainly appear to be the targets. All right, I'm told President Trump is speaking at the moment. We're cutting across live to that.